Hi, you're listening to Julie Taylor, and this is Julie and Company. Today, my guest is Jennifer Brodeur from Skin Savvy. Hi, Jen.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. We tried a couple of times, and now is the good one.
We made it work.
We made it work. You're a busy woman, Jen.
I am.
You now live in the townships.
Yes.
But it was a trek to get here, and I understand that you have a beautiful business in skincare.
I do.
And
I love it.
How did it all start?
Well, my career path wasn't like, I wasn't a child who did nail polish and loved to do hair or anything like that. It wasn't my thing. To this day, I don't really comb my hair or wear makeup, so I'm kind of an oddball in my industry. In my industry, I'm like actually a black sheep. So I wanted to be a criminal law lawyer and was all signed up. And, you know, in kindergarten, I went to school with like a little suit on and a briefcase. So yeah, it was really weird. And that was really my whole journey. And then my best friend, Bryony, she had come from the UK, and her mother, Gillian, sadly passed away from cancer. And that whole experience kind of like
Jolted you? Or
yeah,
created...
it was kind of like, and then I decided to sign up to do
certificate
aesthetics, and I announced it to my parents, and my dad just kind of said, well, you know, do whatever you want, just be the best at whatever it is that you do. And that was that. And they never really talked about it again. And I did that. But I wanted to teach. So my whole premise was I got to do the aesthetics to understand how people work. And then I did my bachelor's in teaching, and then I specialized in chemistry and biology. So I never had the dream of having a skincare clinic. It wasn't that. It was really, how could I educate?
I
if
understand.
That makes any sense. Yeah.
You know, we talked briefly before, and you said that it was a lot about sustaining and supporting women and accepting themselves.
Yes.
So you chose the field of aesthetics because going to Dalhousie, your friend mother passing on, and things aligned.
They did.
Right?
Yeah, and I've always thought, like, what do people do? Everybody's different, and I'm here to serve.
Yeah.
And that's how I serve, by accompanying women in the acceptance of aging and of themselves. So it's always much more than the cream itself. I always say it goes beyond the fine lines and wrinkles.
But you were young when you went to do your certificate, and you were already
I was
I
was already talking like this, and everybody thought I was a fruitcake. The story of my life.
You're saying right now that the opportunity to support women in their aging process and accepting themselves was obvious to you.
Yeah.
Was your mother aging in a way that made you question aging?
No, not at all. She was super accepting and still is. No, it wasn't. It was just, I was very aware of, I guess it was more of the way we talk to women about aging that I thought was wrong. So I was able to see, like I was witnessing on a daily basis how women have different standards of aging and how we should. I remember when I first started teaching and I was called into the principal's office.
And give me an age.
Oh my gosh, I was so young. I was in my early 20s.
Early 20s. So it just gives me an idea of your mindset.
And I'm brought in, and the principal says that he has to reprimand me for something, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what did I do? And I was teaching chemistry and biology, like hello. And he goes, you know, you don't really represent the industry super well. Like, you should wear more makeup and make an effort. And I thought to myself, what? And so, like, in hindsight, like now when I think about it, I think it's hilarious because I had quite the attitude. And I was like, well, no, I said, I think estheticians should learn how to take better care of their skin and not have to wear makeup.
Exactly.
And that would be the best thing to do. So I was never somebody who was overly done. Does that make any sense?
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So if you asked me today to put like eyeshadow on, I wouldn't even know how to start.
I'm the same.
So.
And if we go back to the principle of aging and good skin, I think at a certain age, you're better to shine your skin as a lifestyle and a beauty factor than
less
to
is more,
pack
right?
on other things. Because there are issues with, you know,
as
being
we
past
age,
50 now.
especially as we age, because when people start to be in premenopause, estrogen levels lower, the skin gets thinner, gets much more reactive. So there's a whole bunch of things that are to be thought about there as well. Whereas the way it's done currently, it's interesting because usually when women are more financially able, let's say, to do all the things and buy all the things, it's when they shouldn't be doing it because that's when their skin is the most reactive.
Right.
So then we're seeing a rise of all these different skin issues and rosacea. And interestingly enough, with COVID, there was what we call the Zoom boom. So the Zoom boom is we're not made as human beings to look at ourselves as much as we do.
Oh, thank you.
I never look at myself. So sometimes if you do come see me on Lakeside, you might go, what happened to her? Nothing happened. I just didn't think to look at myself that morning.
When I lived in the country and I was quite busy with the kids, I just took down all the mirrors.
But I'm the same.
Why bother?
Always. What I mean by that is that with the Zoom boom is everybody was looking at themselves on their phones, whether it be from a social media perspective or from Zoom. And so the amount of surgeries and plastic surgeries have boomed. It's just boomed.
Yeah.
Because people look at themselves too much.
I understand.
Like, take a step back from the mirror. No one looks at you that close. And if they're that close and they have something negative to say, well, you know what?
I had a lady friend. She was in her early 90s, and she was still working, and she was lovely. I think she was from Sweden, and she had been an artist, and she had beautiful lines and so poised. And she said with wisdom, she said, you know, if you don't like what you see up close and you need to scrunch to see, back up a little.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, just adjust yourself to what suits you and see your life improve.
Exactly.
You know? You're teaching, you're reprimanded for not wearing enough makeup.
Yeah.
And what was the next step in your business or in your journey?
Well, in my journey at that time, I was also doing a lot of contract work. So I was hired to be in charge of research and development. And so I got to travel the world, and we did machines for cellulite and things like that. And then I wanted to work with light because I'd met some doctors who were using light. So just visible light wavelengths, think of the rainbow.
We know that Korea is considered mecca technology for treatments and skin obsession.
I never thought that.
Okay, so that's
maybe now, but back then,
okay.
Yeah, but back in the late, like 1998, 99, early 2000, it wasn't seen that way really back then.
Where were you getting this brilliant information
I was
from?
in Germany, Switzerland, and France.
Okay.
And they were already using light, and and there was a lot of studies that were done, even with the Navy SEALs, of wound healing and people with bed sores. So it was really interesting. So that was kind of where my mindset was, where people were getting bed sores, and they were treating different skin ailments with light. And I thought we should do that. And where I worked, my boss had laughed at me, and he said, "Nobody ever buy a machine with light. Are you bananas?"
Wow, and today you can't scroll on your Instagram
now that's
without
all there is.
Exactly, handheld, this and that.
Yeah.
So you said the rainbow, the colors of the rainbow.
That's the visible light spectrum, right? So we created a machine, and we launched our machine in 2003. We started in Quebec. It wasn't very good, so I had the idea to go to Florida. So we did Florida, Texas, and California. I gave conferences, and I remember giving the conferences, and people would come up to me and say, like, "Do you think I'm a plant?"
With the accent.
And my answer was, I was like, "Do you have some time? We can have a talk." I remember just being persistent, and we got a first dermatologist in Beverly Hills be like, "I love this. Can I try it?" And that's how it started.
History.
And then we went from California to Hong Kong. And from Hong Kong, I opened up distributors in Australia, New Zealand, and then France and Spain, and over 40 countries around the world.
And you flopped in Quebec.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't have been able to pay our mortgage. So, yeah.
If we go back to this machine, it took some R&D.
Yeah.
So you have an idea. You know that the spectrum of colors and light waves is going to improve someone's skin.
Yeah.
You want to package that. What does that look like?
Well, my husband's an engineer, so that's wonderful. So you have somebody who likes skin and someone who's an engineer, put them together, and there you go. So we always say, we have 3 girls, so we always say Max is our son. And then we worked on that. We had a team, and we worked with doctors in Newport Beach in California. And we worked with some doctors also in another place in the U.S., and I never remember the town. It doesn't matter. And they were doing studies for us, and it was wonderful.
And these people helping you, they get paid. You need to finance them unless they're from universities.
No, but everything was financed through our pockets. So just to be, My father-in-law did give us love money, though. And they had a place in Sutton back in the day, so...
Hi, would you like to be on the show? Do you have any questions or ideas you'd like to share? Go to julietaylor.ca and leave me a message. So you have an idea. You have to invest. You have to do research. You have to come up with the plan for the machine.
Yeah.
Have it made.
Yeah.
A couple of years go by.
Yeah, and you start selling it. And then,
but you have to finance this, and then you don't know if it's going to work.
No, but I was born with an optimist gene.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I get that.
It's just how I am. I can go through 7 emotions in 5 minutes, and you would never know. In a good way.
We'll have to talk after.
In a good way. So I'm anything that happens, I'm able to always be like, okay, can we learn from this? How could we do better? I don't self-deprecate ever, but I'm able to be very accountable for my flaws.
I love that. If there's anything that I can hold on to here is I never self-deprecate, ever.
Ever.
And you are responsible.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Nobody's coming.
Were you brought up with that philosophy, that concept?
Yeah.
Was it observable as a child?
Yeah. And my dad was hilarious because I'd come home from school and say, this was so easy. Like I did a test in geography or whatever. And he'd go, yeah, what did you get? And I'd be like, I don't know, I got 92. Mustn't have been that easy. Because if it was that easy, you would have gotten 100%. I'm like, oh. But it wasn't done in a negative way.
No,
it was just kind of like
helping you build value.
Yeah. So like you did great, but that 8%. You could do better.
That's how you interpreted it.
Yeah.
Because what I'm hearing is that you could be true, but also, I see how you see it now.
Yeah.
Because what I heard was what you did was really good because you had to put in an effort.
Yeah.
And the proof in the pudding is there's an 8% you didn't cover.
Yeah.
So I guess it's accountability.
Yeah.
Truth.
Yeah, always.
And what about your mom? What role did she play?
Well, she was a ballerina, so she did ballet and she loved that. And then she left all that behind and had kids. So we're kind of to blame. And then she was working for a company called Day & Ross, which was very famous back then. And I believe her position was terminal manager, but she was the first woman appointed that role. So I always thought it was so interesting to go from like ballerina to working with all men in a trucking business, right? Day & Ross, that's what they do. They deliver.
And when I think of a man in a truck, and we had, an opportunity to observe that, is they have a free spirit. I mean, you don't choose to be on the road by yourself, doing this because you fit in and you like to follow orders. Yeah. I think you set your course and you're that type of person. So for her to gain that respect and to manage all those people, there must have been something quite charming.
Yeah. And at the same time, I think that our parents do the best they can, right? As we do the best with our kids or what have you. But I feel like my parents were amazing because they just let me the space I needed to grow. So I was never told I was bossy, even though I know I'm very bossy. And I know my brother's older than me and I still tell Richard what to do. Poor guy. It drives him bananas. But I'm very organized. So I'm very annoying for that. But it's just who I am.
It makes perfect sense because we're going to get to another story. So, and I could see how that would fit in I'll bring it up then.
Yeah.
So you're launching your machine. It catches.
It does amazingly well. We make lots of money. We spend too much money, but we are also ill-advised. I'd never do that again. And everyone's like, oh, you're making so much money, you got to spend it because you can't just... And I was like, what if we place money? And they're like, no, ça marche pas comme ça. It's not like that.
No.
And so we were younger.
Si ça marche pas comme ça, c'est que c'est des francophones qui disaient quoi faire?
No, not necessarily. We had people in Montreal. And then what ended up happening was 2008 came and it was a huge world crash, like the whole world. Like people were losing their houses and giving in keys. And we had multiple distributors go bankrupt. So like Australia went bankrupt, and then from there it just kind of kept going. And then we had, like, for example, one PO from like Spain of over 30 machines, like a purchase order of over 30 machines. And like in 24 hours we lost more than $500,000. But we were producing. So not only were we producing,
you had the
like,
chain of production that you were going to sit with.
Private label that were like done for each country, because every country, so that was and I thought I was really smart, so I went to the banks. Don't do that.
So what did you tell the bank? What happened? What did you expect?
Well, I was expecting them to be like, let's work this through. Well, that's kind of what they said to me. And then when I left, everything was like the credit cards, everything was like
frozen.
So I had nothing. So I left there with, like, I couldn't even pay my groceries.
Which means coming to a grinding halt, you can't even reorganize your budget to coast.
You can do
You're
nothing.
Facing fires now.
Like, that's all.
Yeah.
And my husband took it really, really bad, and with reason. I, for whatever reason, was like, wow, what do we have to learn from this? And I was like, let's
That's
open.
the little girl that said, well,
yeah.
I can be accountable and not self-depreciating.
So I was like, I'll open a skincare clinic and we'll do facials. And I remember Charles saying, we're going to what? Like, it's a recession.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, well, what better thing to do in a recession than sell lipstick? And there's this whole study on red lipstick, by the way.
Yes,
during
to feel
the war.
good,
Exactly.
which is the smallest
so
thing
I
you
was
can
like,
purchase.
I'll do facials and we'll pay our bills. And Charles was like, if you think so. He goes, I don't think, but okay. And that's what I did. And that's what happened.
How many years did that last? You know, because you said you were doing one facial at a time to pay back
yeah,
a
that's
loan.
what we did. I would say we were in that space for at least 5 years, but within the first 2 years, things started to change. But in that first year I was there, I was getting calls from people. So as much as I didn't want to talk about Max anymore, this machine will not go away.
Oh, great. So,
do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I was like, we're done. We almost lost everything. We were able to salvage the house. The girls never noticed. Let's keep moving. I'm just going to keep doing facials and that's it. And then people would call like, we want a machine. We want a Max. And I was like, no, you can't have one. I'm done. And no, and to this day, like we're in 2024, we're still selling Max. It's the weirdest thing.
You know, people have gotten wealthier and wealthier. So your original market was clinics.
Yeah.
But now are you selling it to individuals as a high-end product?
Some people, yes. And that all started because of Miss Winfrey. So when Miss Winfrey called back in the day.
That's Oprah Winfrey for the rest of us.
Yeah, when she called, they called multiple times. So twice, and it was during the holidays. And I was like, I need to keep my focus on my business.
And how did she call? How did she get your call and your number?
So long story short, one of the facilities that had our machine was in Beverly Hills, and the esthetician there, her name was Mia, and she was actually dating a Montrealer, of all things in the world. And she was like, does anybody know where this machine comes? She goes, oh, I know her. She's the Montrealer, and here's her cell phone.
Wow.
As silly. So lovely that she was so wonderful, Mia, to be able to, within herself, and say, oh yeah, like this is her info, and she could have not. So I always like to be with people who speak your name in good ways when you're not in the room. So that was a beautiful gift.
The power of alignment and
that changed my life.
Yeah.
That completely changed my life because she, to this day, Miss Winfrey, never knew what I was going through. I would never tell her. It's not about that. I was there to do a job. So I did my job, and then I thought I would never go back, and then it went really well.
And the reason you told me earlier, you had a moment with her, an hour and a half, I think you said, and you probably assessed her skin, her the good and the bad and the ugly.
That's what I do.
And you thought, oh, this might have been
she
too
said
direct.
to me, you know, you're very smart. I don't really understand what you do, but I can tell you're smart. And that was that. And then I wasn't necessarily aligned with what she was saying, but that's not my job.
Right.
My job is to be honest with people. So I'll tell you what I can and can't do and what is doable and not doable. And then I went back to Beverly Hills, and then they called me back and I spent the weekend, and that was over 10 plus years ago. And then I was working with her. She introduced me to the Obamas. And then I did the White House for 3 years, so I take care of the whole family. Yep. We always joke, she always says that was the best introduction ever. And I'm like, yes, it was. Yes, it was. So her introducing me to the Obamas. Yeah. So she always says, this is the best introduction ever. Yeah. And I'm like, yes. And she's, see, honey child. So then, and then in 2016, Mrs. Obama, so Michelle and Oprah were the first two to try our peony line. And Miss Winfrey said to me in a September visit, honey child, you're ready. And I was like, what do you mean? And she goes, yeah, that's it. And then I got a call, and we had to send our products twice to New York, and we had issues with that. We ended up sending them a third time. And then on November 3rd, 2016, we were launched in Oprah's Favorite Things for our skincare line, Peony. And my face was all over the world, and I was like on the big jumbo screens all over New York. And I remember sending pictures to my mom because I was in Hawaii working, and I'm like, look, in New York. And Mom was like, oh, great Photoshop. I'm like, no, it's for real. My mom was like, why would they put your face in New York? Not that she wasn't proud, but I love my parents. They're very like,
down to earth,
yeah. So it was great, and that changed my life. That November 3rd, 2016, if anybody says like that was the pivotal shift of my whole career, because all the doors that I had trouble knocking on just opened with Miss Winfrey's seal of approval of my skincare line.
So anyone that you would have been soliciting for carrying your line, In boutiques or
Yeah.
clinics, you just couldn't get past go.
I didn't try before that, because before that we had our skincare clinic in Montreal. We were doing super well. We were going to have the skincare line just for Montreal clients. That was my vision. My vision was never to do what it did at that time.
Because I think there is many pivotal moments.
Yeah.
It's your latest pivotal moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
And then
you're so aligned from the beginning.
yeah, and then Knowlton is like, I guess, the last pivotal moment.
Right.
So.
How does one feel to have a client like Mrs. Winfrey or Michelle and Barack Obama? And over 10 years, I mean, it takes a special person to stay in that circle for so long.
I think so. I think
Earlier,
so.
you said, I might not tell the truth, but that's who I am. And I'm not self-depreciating,
Yeah.
but I'm accountable.
Yeah.
I think it would take that strong a spirit to meet other strong spirits.
Yes, and at the same time, it's knowing your place, right? Know
Yeah.
when to stay, know when to go, know when not to speak, and that's one of my talents. I can disappear very easily.
So you have that little voice in you that you're very connected
I know
to.
I'm able to be, I can read people and be like, okay, she's not maybe having a good day, or maybe it's not, they're having a conversation. I shouldn't be at the table. So I know when to excuse myself.
But I think that's just savoir vivre.
Oh, you'd be surprised. No, but I know, but like,
What's the difference then?
well, no, but it is, but like there's,
But respecting
I'll give
human
you,
beings.
yeah, but I'll give you an example.
Is
So,
it treat people the way you'd want to be treated?
Michelle would say that a lot of people want to be at the top of the mountain, but they're not ready for the lack of oxygen, so they get to the top and they all go crazy. So for a lot of people, I've seen dinners, where people would start to cry at the table, and I was like, this isn't the Oprah show. Like, what are you doing? Like, get a hold of yourself. Whereas I'm very able to be like, so in my mind, I'm like, they're very generous with me. And I tell myself, like, these aren't my friends, like, they're clients. And I'm very able to,
Put things in boxes?
yes,
So you know how to be in a certain transaction.
yes. But that's a gift, I think. Because I
Yes.
think if you're not able to do the dance, then you leave. Like, in the last 10, 12 years, the amount of people I've seen come and go, you'd be surprised.
And is that because they have a lack of self-containment?
I think there's a part of that. I think there's a lot of things, and then they just disappear and they never come back.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think each case is probably specific to the person, but yeah, I see it happen a lot.
Okay. How does it feel, for example, to go off to Hawaii and do a treatment and come back? Does the juxtaposition of the two worlds kind of jolt you every time, or?
Not at all. No, it's weird. And I like being home. I like being in Knowlton. I like, having my space on Lakeside.
That's the store, by the way.
Yeah,
the boutiques on Lakeside.
I'm just happy to be home. So for me, it's like, oh, gotta go. I'm gonna go do my work, and then I'm so happy to come home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Family life's important, no?
Yeah, and I think that I never wanted to be known as the celebrity facialist. So I'm here because I love
Until
what I
now.
do. Yeah, no, but I love what I do, right? So I do it for something greater than this. It's like that's how I serve, is by helping people.
So if they come calling and it's not against the grain of that which you believe in, you'll go for it.
Yeah, and
You're
I've
open.
said no to a lot of celebrities, so it's not about that. So the one pet peeve I have is when people say, "Oh my gosh, let us introduce you to our celebrity facialist today," and I'm always like, "I'm more than that. I'm so many things. That's just part of what I do."
Yeah.
So
Here in Knowlton. When did you move?
I get my years wrong. I think we moved
few
in
years ago?
2021 or something like that. I
Okay.
think, yeah.
And you were telling me about your skincare. You put peonies in there.
Yeah, peony
Yes.
root extract. So we work with the root extract, and we work with some of the peony seeds as well and make an oil of that.
And now I heard that you're growing your own peonies.
I know, that was the dream. Can you imagine?
And you had a vision of that.
Yes, I did.
Tell me about
I
it.
did a video. So I give a class. It's a 24-hour class in it's a
Beauce?
school in Beauce, and my 24-hour class is on vision, and I had to do a video to explain to them what their homework was. And my video literally says, I see myself in the townships with my rain boots on, early morning with a coffee in hand, and I can see my peonies and I can smell them.
Now, did you just articulate this on a video
Yeah.
to them? You didn't
Yeah.
actually film a clip of that?
No,
that you
because
could
I
have
wasn't even
imagined?
living here. Like I
Right.
was living, but I was explaining to them because the way I give the class is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? What does it look like? What does it taste like? What would how would you feel like? What would it be like? What do you see?
And how can somebody get into that class if you want? Where could we
If people
look it up?
log in to the school, École EEB, so École Entrepreneurship de Beauce, they have a whole, and it's a lot of entrepreneurs go there. It's a wonderful setting. So often I go, it's my way of giving back. So when I go, I'm not paid to do it. It's just my way of giving. So there'll be like 30-something entrepreneurs there, and then I give my little 24 hours. I do my show, and then I come home.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah, it's great. And then my pay is each entrepreneur says something about what they take away from the class. So it's lovely.
So peonies, sorry.
Yeah, that's
so
okay.
you've been planting a few peonies in your new property.
Yes,
And you were
yeah.
telling me there was a nice anecdote with Peter, the original owner.
Yes. So when we first visited the home, it was a very funny story because we went like in December and it was just before the holidays, and they were gracious enough to let us visit. And it was the holidays, and I could tell the minute I walked into the house, I knew I had to be there. And I just looked at him and I said, this is a beautiful property. It's a beautiful home. And I'd not even passed the doorway.
The threshold,
And
yeah.
my agent was looking at me with evil eyes, like,
Shut up.
don't say you like the house. And I said to him, this house has a beautiful soul. Whatever you've done to it, we're just going to uphold your legacy and make sure that's carried through. And he brought me into the kitchen, and he had these beautiful thank you cards painted by Rhonda Price. And I was able to connect with Rhonda Price recently, and she made me peony cards. And she has done 2 beautiful drawings of our home. So what the home used to look like and what it looks like now. And I remember him being in the kitchen, and his eyes were full of, and he goes, Jennifer, my Heather would be so proud to hear that you want to have peonies, and she would like that. So if you really want the house,
We'll give it to
we'll
you.
make it, but it was such a lovely, what a wonderful way to acquire a property while
With the
we have it.
blessings
Yes.
And
And I could
and a
just
sense of purpose. I mean, you had your vision.
I had my
and it was
vision,
going to
and-
rest on a layer that was
Yeah.
already prepared for you.
Exactly. And he was super into it. And, that's in a time where everybody was kind of overbidding for homes and fighting for homes. And we didn't have that. It was just, he just wanted to know, why. And it was just a lovely exchange. And to this day, he's a lovely, just a lovely family. So we feel blessed.
We've chatted off the air as well, and I think it's appropriate, the principle of being custodian of the earth and the
Yes.
mission behind reinvigorating the land or giving back to the land. That's where it came about, peonies.
It's very important to me, and to also, without making Knowlton super busy. It's not about that, but I feel like there's so much history, amazing things that are here. So for me, it's so if I'm having an interview with All Canada, well, I'm going to talk about Knowlton because I think more people should come visit, right? I think Louise Penny does a great job for the town as well. But for us with the peonies, it's just another way. It's just, and then, we have our honeybees, and so it's just lovely.
We could go on. We're going to have to meet again and go on. So, Jennifer, thank you so much for coming by.
you for
And
having me.
anybody who'd be interested in a facial with the lovely fingers of Jennifer, who have touched gods in our time, you can go to Skin Savvy on Lakeside, and she has her clinic there, and you can follow her on Instagram.
Yes.
And I think skinsavvy.com is your
Yes,
website.
Exactly.
Thanks, Jen.